Tudor versus Rolex, the oldest debate in the world. Not the oldest, but in the watch industry over the last maybe 20 years. This has been an ongoing debate. I want to talk about it. I want to share my perspective after getting hands-on with both the Tudor Pelagos 39 and the Rolex 16610, one of my all-time favorite submariners. This can be a very subjective debate because the thing is, when we try to compare both of these watches and both of these brands, it's more than just what's in front of you in terms of product. There's a lot going on behind the product, which adds to the decision making. So now the question is, if I am to pick one of these watches, if money was no object and I could just pick one of these two, which one would I go for? Let's psychoanalyze this. Should be fun. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Abdullah. I talk about watches in hopefully a fun, entertaining way and share my analysis or what the hell is going on with the watch industry. But before we talk more, just do me a small favor, hit that subscribe button. It really helps. Thanks. Now, this video has been done a million times, but I wanted to kind of not do a spec to spec. It's not fair when we pin our 20-year-old Rolex against a fairly recent Tudor. But the whole idea behind this video is to look beyond just the specifications. What is it about this Rolex or Rolex in general as a brand that makes it so much more desirable, even though we can find competitive specifications or even better specifications for the money? Look at cameras. If you take a 20-year-old flagship professional camera and compare it to a new mirrorless entry-level camera or mid-range camera, the cheaper modern camera will outperform the vintage. But there's still a lot that this offers which the purists will appreciate. Vanity versus sanity. This is where you start to look into nostalgia. The only thing that the older flagship professional camera has going on for it is that it has some reverence. Maybe back in the day, it was used by the best photographers in the world, capturing some of the best photos using this camera. And while the entry-level mirrorless camera technically offers better quality, it lacks that prestige, that history, that reverence. And that's how I look at these two watches. When you're deciding between a new Tudor or an older Submariner, you need to look beyond specifications. Otherwise, this decision, this whole thing doesn't make any sense. Because logic dictates that Tudor is the clear winner. It costs almost half the price. It's got a better movement inside. It has the better bracelet. And it's made of titanium, a much more modern material. So the only reason that you would go for the Rolex, or if I would go with the Rolex, is if I want a Rolex, which is something that legitimately a lot of people do want. But before we explore any further, let's go over the specifications of these two watches. The Rolex 16610 comes in a 40mm case constructed out of 904L stainless steel, which Rolex is known for. You get a thickness of about 13mm, a lug width of 20mm, and a lug-to-lug of 48mm. You have an aluminum bezel, 300 meters of water resistance, and a sapphire crystal on top. The movement inside is the automatic Rolex in-house caliber 3135. This beats at a 4 Hz frequency and offers 48 hours of power reserve. On the other hand, the much cheaper Tudor comes in a 39mm case made out of grade 2 titanium with a ceramic bezel, sapphire crystal, 200 meters of water resistance, and a titanium bracelet with a T-fit clasp. It wears extremely well with a thickness of 11.8mm, a lug-to-lug of 47mm, and a lug width of 21. The watch houses the automatic MT5400, also developed in-house by Tudor. It also offers a beat frequency of 4 Hz, but in this case, a higher power reserve of 70 hours. Both movements are COSC certified, so you're getting incredible accuracy. Now, both of these watches were kindly sent to me by Swiss Connection Watches, and they do worldwide shipping. Their prices are incredible. They have new watches, they've got old watches. Their service is incredible, so do check them out. Now, let me make a case for each of these watches. Let's talk about the Tudor first. The Tudor is incredibly light, incredibly comfortable, and highly robust. Even though it's titanium, it feels bulletproof. This makes it an ideal sports watch, an ideal daily watch. It could very well be your one watch collection, just one and done. As a result of the combination of titanium as a case material combined with the near perfect ergonomics of the case, this essentially is a go anywhere, do anything watch. And it looks damn good on the wrist. This is one of those watches where context is everything. It looks kind of boring on its own lying on the table, but on the wrist, it's like, whoa. I've personally never found it exciting, but when I put it on the wrist, even my wife, who doesn't care about watches, went like, that's a really good looking watch. Do you know how rare that is to hear from non-watch people? Super, super rare. The Rolex, on the other hand, isn't as technically well made as the Pelagos. The clasp is crap, the bezel is aluminum, which tends to age and scratch, and it's too tight for my taste, as compared to the Pelagos, which feels effortless when turning. But the charm of this watch is undeniable. Just like how I prefer the older generation James Bond Seamasters, I prefer this generation of Submariners, the pre-maxi case, the pre-super case. There's just something about them that feels purpose-driven, purpose-built. And I like purpose-built tool watches. Yes, I'm one of those guys. It's a watch that will look good with scratches on it because it was made to be used and abused. And you can tell that just by holding it. Okay, let's look beyond the products. Let's look beyond the specifications. Why would you go for the more expensive Rolex compared to the better performing Tudor in this case? Again, not comparing modern Tudor to modern Rolex. I'm talking about modern Tudor to a neo-vintage Rolex, a 20-year-old Rolex. As a brand, Rolex moves at a different pace than the rest. It seems to operate by a different set of rules. The traditional rules of modern brand marketing that encloses all of the things we see today, like watch media, media relations, and CEO interviews, they don't seem to apply to Rolex for some reason. Even beyond marketing, just looking at the products themselves, where there seems to be this pressure on almost every watch brand to release more than just new dial colors. That doesn't seem to be the case with Rolex. Rolex moves at a much more restrained pace. Then the question arises, why don't the other brands do the same? Practice the same level of constraint? Wouldn't that make sense in terms of elevating their demand? They simply cannot. Where watch brands have synchronized and aligned with the rest of the consumer industry in terms of the new releases or timing of their new releases, I mean, looking at fashion, cars, tech, whatever you want to look at, Rolex barely gets affected because it has been one of the most patient and consistent watch brands in the last century. And a lot of brands try to replicate that model. But the way that Rolex has been able to stay patient and restrained and consistent is because they perfected their products first, making their product iconic. And that is a very key component to the brand. I don't see any new brands or newer brands being able to follow that business model. Maybe in the next 50 years. Tudor, on the other hand, at least for now, still feels like the rest. They're transparent. They talk to people. They're open about their processes. The mystique is not there. And just to compare, if you look at Rolex advertising, you have this watchmaker just sitting in isolation, almost in another world. Nothing seems familiar. The environment is different. The atmosphere feels science fiction. It's a very alien. It seems filled with mystique. And I feel like that's intentional. Rolex doesn't want to just give away that image of mystique. Tudor isn't like that. Tudor doesn't operate in that way. That's what makes Tudor different, for better or worse. Now, some people will go to Tudor because they like the products. I love Tudor because of the products first. You can say that Tudor offers better value, but as a brand, the power that Rolex wields is undeniable. To be honest, that doesn't impress me. I'm not looking at this as like, oh wow, nobody can get it and therefore I must have it. It's not something that makes me want it. It's just fascinating to look at. There are very few Rolexes that I would actually own if I could, and this is one of them. This has that look, that charm that speaks to me. I was never a fan of the Pelagos. It looks good, it looks incredible on the wrist, but for me that's not enough. Let me know in the comments, which one would you go for? What do you think of both of these watches? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.